Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about sinking funds, why they're important, and how to actually implement them in practice. Stick around to the end and you'll see me actually setting up a new sinking fund in my account. First, if you're new here, thank you for checking out my channel. On this channel, we're going to talk about everything about money, how to save it, how to invest it, and how to retire early. I'm planning on retiring next year at 44, and currently I work as a truck driver. So join me and let's drive towards financial independence. So, what are sinking funds? Sinking funds are essentially separate piles of money. You might call them digital envelopes or digital pockets. There's midnight. So sinking funds are basically certain amounts of money that you set aside on a regular basis to cover expenses that you expect. For example, your rent or medical expenses, clothing, basically anything that you expect to spend money on an ongoing basis, you would set up a sinking fund for that. You can have unlimited numbers of sinking funds or just one or two. Most people, I believe, just keep all of their money into their checking account and maybe a savings account. And that's great when you're just starting out. Have that emergency fund, have $1,000 or $3,000 in your checking account to cover your monthly expenses. But the further along you go in the journey, once you have, especially once you have paid off your debts, you'll start to see how important sinking funds can be and how easy it makes managing your money. For me, I really don't like to see all of my money in one account because that makes me feel like all of that money is available to spend when you know that it's not. And I don't like to do the extra mental lifting to calculate how much I need to pull out for clothing, how much I need to pull out for groceries and car expenses. So I have separate accounts for each one of those. If you've watched my previous videos, you've seen that I have a spreadsheet where I do my budget. And from that spreadsheet, which I'll pull up and show you in just a moment, I translate into the digital accounts, my digital pockets in my Capital One account. I really like Capital One because that allows me to have enough of my different savings accounts. Each of them don't require a fee, and I can transfer money back and forth instantly between the various accounts. There's several different kinds of checking accounts that provide similar types of services. SoFi checking is one of the banks that offers similar services, but you really want to find a bank that offers where you can have multiple accounts or pockets or funds and have automatic transfers set up. And I'll show you how to do that. I'll walk you through that step by step. Okay, you might recognize this from my previous videos. This is from my budgeting spreadsheet where I do my weekly budget. My utilities coming out every week to cover all my recurring charges come to $136.28 up here. I've numbered these as far as the number of transfers that I have that come out from my sinking funds. The second one here is for personal, $50 for that. Gas and food I've circled in red here, $250 a week I plan on. I don't have a transfer set up for that because that varies week to week. We try to stay under $250, but I leave that into the primary account and just pay whatever that turns out to be each week. Then I have $579.07 for the apartment, $50 going into the car maintenance sinking fund, $269.23 going into our Roth sinking fund, $75 for Mindy's spending money, and $75 for my spending money. So that's 7 transfers, and I'll show you how they look in my bank account in the next shot. And this is what it looks like in Capital One, where you actually can see on July 1st, I have each of these transactions scheduled to come out. We have the 269.23, that was for the Roth investments, the $50 going into the personal fund, 75 for me, 75 for Mindy, the 136.28 for the utilities, the 579 is for the rent. So you can see each of these I've got set up to come out every Tuesday, terrible Tuesday, when the money comes out of our primary account. All right, so now we're actually live in my actual bank account with Capital One. I'm going to show you my actual current funds and all of my different accounts that I have set up with Capital One. Let me move my head around here. So this is our primary checking account. I have $200 set up in there. I try to keep about $200 in that just to cover the regular in and out money. The primary savings account, $3,093.37. That's the main account that I use to fund all of our other expenses. Our sinking funds, the transfers, comes out of this account. Once that comes out and we've paid for our weekly expenses, whatever's remaining, if I were in debt, I could put that towards debt. Being that I no longer have debt, whatever's remaining, I can put into our investment account. We have our Venture X Capital One credit card here, a balance of $266.62. I pay that off every week. The Zach money account, that's my personal spending money. The $75 goes into that pocket every week for me to spend on whatever I like. The investing money, I've got 14K set there, labeled it as 14K because that's the total amount we want to put into our Roth account each year. $897.24 current balance. Every time that reaches $1,000, I move it into our investing account. We have the $2,400 set up for rent. That $2,400 covers our rent for July, so that's fully funded and ready to go. We have the $2,042.77 for our utilities. Normally that's not that high of a balance. Right now I've let that build up some because I have the car insurance that I pay out of that. That's due every 6 months and that's coming up due soon. The travel and vacation fund here is $2,707.56. That's a very precise amount because that pays for our next cruise. So I don't need to put anything more into that for now. We have $1,200 in our car maintenance fund. Whenever we do an oil change or need to replace tires, anything like that, that comes out of here. Also, if we were planning on in the future buying a new car or replacing our current cars, we could take the excess funds here and apply it towards that. The child savings fund, that's where my stepdaughter, Jasmine, gets her savings account and she can spend out of that as she likes. She currently has $101.22 in there. We have the $22,561 for our medical emergency set aside. We normally would have $25,000. We've borrowed a little bit out of that to cover the vacation my wife just went on. The Mindy has her money here for $812.16. She can spend that however she likes. The $75 a week goes into that. Then I have a few CDs set up down here for other emergencies and just to maintain the current high interest rate that we set those up when we got those. And I put the expiration date for those CDs as the title. So the longest CD that we have out is 5 years. It expires January 2029. Current balance on that is $3,000. As these CDs expire, I will probably just apply them into our investing account and no longer keep them set aside for emergencies. So this is all of our digital pockets. the investing money that goes into the Roth account, like I said. Also, any extra amount we put into our taxable brokerage account, but it comes out of this. So, how do I use my pockets in practice on a weekly basis with our regular spending? On the screen here, you can see I have a list of the different credit cards that we use. So, that might seem like a lot, 14 cards, but we don't carry 14 cards in our wallet. Most of those cards actually stay locked up in the safe. We only carry 2 or 3 cards in our wallet for different kinds of spending, and I'll make a future video about how we use each of those cards. But each week I take all of our cards in a spreadsheet, and I put in the current total balance for those cards, and that comes to 185.41. And then I'll make a transfer out of our primary savings account into our checking account, and then I go into each of those credit cards and pay the full amount so that they stay paid off. Here you have a screenshot of that $185.41. This is that transaction where I moved the money out of our primary savings account for the week and into our checking account to cover our expenses for the week. So in practice, each week, how does it work when we spend money on our credit cards for our regular spending? Last week, I needed to buy a pair of shorts. I went to Sam's Club. I bought a pair of shorts for $15. So right after I made that purchase on one of my credit cards, I went into my pocket, my Zach Money pocket, and I transferred $15 out of that pocket. That transfer, $15 out, left me with $13.60.51 at the time that I could spend on whatever else I needed to. And I put a memo here, Zach Shorts. That went into our primary savings. So then when I do my weekly credit card payments, that money will be included in that balance. Hey, Luna. Here you can see the money coming into the primary savings account, the $15, bringing the primary savings account balance up to $1,515. It was just $1,500 before that. I wanted to leave enough in it to cover our weekly withdrawals for the pockets. So as promised, I'm going to walk you through what it looks like to actually set up a recurring transfer for your pockets to maintain your budget, whether that is weekly, monthly, or however you want to fill up your digital pockets, your digital envelopes. So in Capital One, you're going to log in to your Capital One account, and you're going to click on Transfer. Now you'll already need to have opened up other savings accounts, but when you do that, you're going to go to Transfer From, and I've got it set up to transfer from my primary savings account, and you're going to click on Transfer To and select the pocket that you want it to go into. Then you're going to come down and select frequency. Let's say weekly. You can select the start date. I like mine to come out on Tuesdays, so we're going to start it on July 1st, Terrible Tuesdays. Now, I don't have an end date in mind, but if you do have a certain savings goal that you know you will reach in a certain amount of time, you'll put that in. Otherwise, you keep that empty. So in the future, I know that I will need to transfer out for a budget for my VPN when I start traveling around the world. Let's say that we spend $20 a month on our VPN. Well, if I do $5 a week, that should cover the $20 a month in a VPN pocket, and I would click on Review and set up that new weekly transfer. One more word of advice for using bank accounts in a safe manner, especially when you deal with multiple accounts as I do. It's good to have alerts set up for each of your accounts. All of my credit cards and accounts, I've got alerts set up to where I get an email or a text message whenever any transaction hits the account. That way, nothing sneaks by me. So every Tuesday morning, there goes Luna again. Every Tuesday morning, I get a bunch of emails showing me here where all of the transactions come through to fill up my pockets. This was last Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. and it's your transfer is complete. If there was a problem with any of those transfers, it would let me know your transfer failed and I could look into a possible reason why it failed. But normally, I like to see this on Tuesday morning, all of these transfers being completed. That's it for today, guys. That's how digital pockets work, or digital envelopes and sinking funds, whatever you want to call them. That's how I use them. How do you use sinking funds in your budget? Do you have any questions about how to do different kinds of transfers or set up different kinds of budgets? I'd be more than happy to help you with that. Leave it in a comment down below. See you next week.